If one day you return to the neighborhood you once lived in and realize that all the neighbors have disappeared, only locked houses, overgrown lawns, and a few shadows wandering in the night remain, then welcome. You are in Oakland in 2025. Once the pride of the Bay Area, Oakland is now a place where dreams melt away under the scorching heat and poverty. More than 5,000 homeless people live in makeshift tents on the sidewalks, under bridges, amidst the smell of gasoline, garbage, and the sound of trucks passing by all night. They are not outsiders. They used to be the backbone of this city. But when wages couldn't keep up with rent, when illness struck without insurance, and especially when faith in the system gradually waned, they were pushed to the sidelines one by one. Oakland didn't collapse overnight. It is rotting away, like a tree trunk decaying from the inside. And if you think this is just an issue for Oakland, you need to watch this entire video, because darkness is spreading, and the place where you live could be the next name. People used to say, if you want to know the future of a city, look at how it treats its elderly. There used to be an Oakland bright with lights, bustling with music, where every street corner was filled with hope and vibrant life. But today, that future lies curled up under a blue tarp, fluttering in the wind, etched into a gaunt body, soulless eyes, and trembling hands clutching itself in the bone-chilling cold. The streets that were once filled with light are now silent like a graveyard. The shops that were once the heartbeat of the neighborhood are now tightly shut, desolate and cold. Under the abandoned storefronts, the homeless jostle for a hidden corner to shelter for the night, as if they have been expelled from the very life they once helped build. Oakland, once a symbol of culture and the struggle for justice, has now become a symbol of a heartbreaking paradox. Those who once worked their entire lives, paid taxes, and believed in the American dream, now can't even afford a roof over their heads called home. Just in the past year alone, more than 5,490 people in Oakland have fallen into homelessness. But local organizations believe the actual number is much higher, because many people live in cars, stay with friends, or simply hide in abandoned warehouses. They are not counted in the system because they are not desperate enough to be considered homeless. A heartbreaking paradox. When suffering has not yet reached its lowest point, it is still not acknowledged. Many of them still go to work every day, working full-time, doing 2 jobs at once. They were once a solid part of the structure of this city. But today, you can find those who once bore the weight of America, now resting their heads on the sidewalks. If you think Oakland is an exception, remember, it used to be a cultural center, a leader in progressive social movements, a model for a multicultural community. And now, that very place is suffocating the very people who once dedicated themselves to it. The world once looked to America as a model, and Americans, especially the older generation, once believed they were living in the best place on earth. But when you drive down San Pablo Avenue in Oakland and see veterans sprawled on the sidewalks or single mothers begging with their children at an abandoned gas station, you will gradually realize that something terrible is happening to this once leading country. Try looking further, beyond the borders of the United States. In Japan, where the population is aging rapidly, the government and non-profit organizations have joined forces to establish resting spaces specifically for homeless elderly people, each place equipped with clean blankets, drinking water, and a mobile clinic with nurses on duty at night. Or in the Netherlands, they don't stop at temporary shelters. They implemented the Housing First policy comprehensively, making housing a basic right rather than a final reward. Meanwhile, in Oakland, a city located in one of the world's strongest economies, thousands of people still have to sleep in old cars, under bridges, in storm drains. Oakland did not collapse overnight. It is rotting from the inside, like wood eaten by termites, like streets losing their soul, like trust being gnawed away day by day. The American dream was once the dream of everyone. But today, do you still believe it is meant for you? or just a dream in the past. Have you ever seen a deer stuck in the middle of the freeway? Not because it is stupid or careless, but because it has nowhere to run. And that is exactly the predicament of Connie, a 58-year-old mother in Oakland. She once had everything: a home, 3 well-behaved children, a stable job, and 13 years of triumph over a mental health condition that had once ravaged her youth. But then, the landlord reclaimed the 3-bedroom apartment that she and her children were renting. Without warning, the upheaval struck like the blaring of a car horn on the highway, causing everything to collapse in an instant. She still struggles to survive each day, applying for housing, hoping, being disappointed, and then repeating. Like a deer in the middle of a highway, Connie turned left, turned right, but every path led to a dead end. Once she thought she was about to be saved, a new, clean apartment, seemingly a new beginning. But then the FBI raided just before the day she was supposed to sign the contract, and the dream shattered into smoke again. Over time, she learned how to no longer hope. She called it learned helplessness. When one has knocked on the door too many times and only received silence in return, they begin to believe that knocking again is futile. However, amidst it all, Connie still holds on to one final thing: self-respect and an unburdened future for her beloved children.
I refuse to have to put my burden on one of my children. They worked hard to get where they are.
Even though exhausted and hurt, she stood there, like a deer, unwilling to fall in the middle of the highway, even knowing there was no way out ahead. Though exhausted, though wounded, she still stood there, like a deer unwilling to fall on the highway, even knowing there was no escape ahead. You might see a homeless person sitting by the roadside and think that they have given up. But if you look closely, you will see in them a silent battle, fighting to continue hoping and not losing themselves in the whirlwind of poverty. The homeless just need a roof over their heads and a chance to start over, like so many others have been given. In a country that once promised that everyone deserves a chance, it is truly ironic that people like Connie, who do everything right, live responsibly, and overcome their past, are left on the sidelines without anyone noticing. In the heart of a city once filled with movements for justice, now there are people huddled in the dark, silently enduring injustice. When even those who once stood firm and fought with all their might are pushed into the shadows, who is still safe in this society? Not in the desert, not in the suburban slums, but right in the heart of Oakland. Dead zones are quietly forming. The areas that were once vibrant, full of voices and music, have now become dead zones for those left behind by the system. Along San Pablo Avenue, where there used to be Mexican restaurants and small barbershops run by immigrants, now there are only boarded up windows, walls covered in graffiti, and in front, tattered tents set up right by the sidewalk. Each tarp is an unfinished story. Each pile of trash is a forgotten part of the American dream. What is even more frightening is that these dead zones are no longer exceptions. They are expanding, gradually taking over every street, every vacant parking lot, every decommissioned industrial area. They call them tent cities, but in reality, they are cities of despair. And the paradox is, the more charitable organizations are established, the more budgets are allocated, the worse the situation becomes. Why? Because the system does not target the core. They build temporary shelters, but do not provide long-term stability. They distribute food, but do not address housing, employment, or mental health. Areas like Wood Street, once a symbol of the resistance and resilience of the homeless, are now being cleared by bulldozers and police. But then where did those people go? There is no alternative. They are scattered everywhere again, forming new death zones, closer, more immediate, right before the eyes of the people. And then indifference began to take shape. People gradually got used to seeing others sleeping on the sidewalk. Children grow up in neighborhoods where homelessness is normal. The collapse does not come with a bang. It comes with callousness. And that is the scariest thing. Have you ever walked past a person lying motionless on the sidewalk and felt nothing? Have you ever seen a child eating a cookie in the middle of a garbage dump and turned away because it's not your business? If the answer is yes, we are living in a dying city. Oakland is not only collapsing in terms of infrastructure or economy, but is rotting from the inside, as people's hearts no longer feel pain. And faith in kindness is gradually eroded to the core. So if apathy is the fastest spreading disease in this city, how long until it will be our turn to feel nothing? And if even empathy has no place to reside, then who will stand up when you yourself fall down? We used to believe that if we worked hard, cut expenses, and adhered to principles, we would have a home. But those principles have gradually eroded over the years. The rent prices in Oakland have increased by more than 70% over the past decade. While the income of the working class has remained almost stagnant, apartments priced under $1,000 once common now seem like a legend. People say the market will self-correct, but here, the market has forgotten the vulnerable. When a full-time worker still cannot afford to rent a decent studio, then clearly, the problem is no longer an individual one. That is a failure of the entire system. The housing assistance programs are too few and too slow. The waiting list stretches for years. Many people give up before their turn. Many affordable apartments have been wiped out to make way for luxury apartment projects, opulent, shiny, but left empty for months because none of those who need them the most can afford to rent them. Instead of building more housing for low-income people, we are constructing more luxurious glass cages for the wealthy. As for those who once built this city, now they have to pitch tents on its outskirts. The shortage of affordable housing is no longer a problem. It is a crisis. An invisible crisis that seeps into every corner, causing young people to leave the city, the elderly to fall into destitution, and families to break apart simply because they can no longer afford a roof over their heads. We cannot continue to live in the illusion that everyone has a choice, because no one voluntarily chooses to live in a car. No one chooses to set up a tent on the sidewalk when it's freezing cold. No one wants their child to study under the light of an abandoned gas station. So why can't a country that once touched the moon build an affordable apartment for those who have preserved its foundation? But there are still glimmers of light in the darkness. In Oakland and many other cities, there are still charitable organizations and quiet individuals who strive every day to help the homeless regain a home and hope. They cannot change the entire system, but they can change someone's life. If you know someone who is in a difficult situation, don't hesitate to refer them to organizations like Operation Dignity, the Homeless Action Center, or local centers. A call, a share. It could be a lifeline for an entire family. And if you want to spread this story, please leave a comment, share the video, or subscribe to the channel. The more people see the truth, the more hope there is for change. In the heart of Oakland, there is another city that exists, not on the tourist map, not mentioned in the urban development strategy, but it is as clearly present as the gaze of the man starting a fire by the roadside, or the voice of the child asking their mother, "Can we go home tonight?" That city is home to thousands of people in makeshift tents, old cars, or under bridges. It has its own structure, its own rules, and its own fears. The fear of having their tents burned down in the middle of the night. The fear of being chased away by the police. The fear that there will be no place to sleep tomorrow. On San Pablo Avenue, one of the main thoroughfares of Oakland, you can walk through a makeshift encampment stretching for miles. From a distance, it looks like a makeshift market, but there is nothing to sell, only people living quietly, with fragile hope. There are residential areas built from wooden pallets, plastic tarps, old car doors, and makeshift stoves made from tin cans. People share a loaf of bread, a blanket, or simply the story of still being alive today. People share a loaf of bread, a blanket, or simply the story of still being alive today. It is a community that no one wants to belong to, but once you fall into it, it is very hard to escape. You may not see it, but it is swelling every day. When rent prices skyrocket, when health insurance falls short, when a single job loss means losing your home, then that other city welcomes another person, another family, and Oakland, each day, divides into two worlds, one side with party lights, the other with people huddling in the night. The scariest part. The authorities and the surrounding residents are gradually getting used to the presence of that city. They call it an issue, a problem to manage, an inevitable part of modern urban life. But those are people, flesh and blood, with names, memories, and even unfinished dreams. When a city accepts the existence of two parallel worlds, one with the right to live, the other merely allowed to exist, then it is no longer a housing issue. It is a question of human dignity. If you have ever witnessed or know someone who is on that edge, help them connect with local relief organizations. A small help today could be the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Have you ever imagined that just by losing a small card, you could be erased from society without a trace? No one says your name, no one remembers your face, and every door slams shut in front of you just because you don't have an ID. In Oakland, what seems like something out of a science fiction movie is a daily reality. The homeless people here, many of whom worked for 20 or 30 years, once had homes, spouses, and children, now live quietly on the fringes of society, without papers, without names in the system, not a single line of record, no social security number, no access to anything that belongs to citizenship rights. Some lost their documents because they were robbed. Some others simply had their belongings gathered by the police when they cleaned up the temporary camp, and their IDs were thrown away with the trash. They go to the agency to request a replacement, but they can't prove who they are. They have no address, no birth certificate, no bank account. The door of the system requires you to already be in the system, and thus the circle closes, merciless and silent. That is the bitterest paradox to get help. You need to prove you need help, but because you are too weak, too miserable, too lacking, you cannot prove it. This situation not only prevents them from applying for benefits, entering shelters, or receiving medical treatment, but also deeply erodes their sense of being human. No name, no verified memory, no system recognizing that they exist. They are not just homeless, they become invisible. And the most terrible thing is, no one notices they have disappeared. A society proud to be a place of equality and opportunity allows thousands of elderly people, those who once paid taxes and worked tirelessly, to be pushed aside simply because of a flimsy piece of paper. In the memories of those over 55 who have witnessed America overcome crises and rebuild from ruins, can you believe that just because someone lost a plastic card, they could lose their right to be a part of this nation? Oakland today is not collapsing with a loud bang. It is disintegrating little by little, like a wall soaked with water, like a bridge with rotting beams, like trust being drained day by day. And the scariest thing is that collapse happens so quietly and slowly that many people don't notice, until they see their neighbor lose their home. Then the close friend lost their job. Then they themselves started cutting back on meals. The future of Oakland is not just the story of one city. It is a microcosm of the looming dangers in dozens, even hundreds of other cities across America. Because what is happening here, the housing crisis, skyrocketing living costs, stagnant incomes, and community disintegration are all consequences of larger structures. long-standing discrepancies in urban development and social welfare policies. And more concerning is the creeping normalization of the crisis. The rows of homeless tents sprouting every meter along the boulevard no longer make anyone stop and look for long. The police no longer handle the scuffles between those fighting for sleeping spots, because they themselves have nowhere to take them. Local authorities call it a complex situation. The local authorities call it a complex situation. As for the residents, they avoid that route as quickly as possible. In a recent survey, more than 63% of people living in the Bay Area reported that they had considered moving away due to the high cost of living and a sense of insecurity. But if everyone leaves, then who will stay to preserve the spirit of this city? We cannot just rely on the government or charitable organizations to turn the situation around. But what we can do, and need to do, is not to get used to this decline. We must not see homelessness as an inevitable part of the urban landscape. Do not remain silent when the elderly, veterans, and those who once worked diligently are huddled in tents in the cold night. Oakland still has bright spots. Volunteer groups distributing hot meals every evening. Mobile doctors tending to wounds. Emergency support programs despite their scarcity. And if you know anyone who is struggling, please refer them to organizations like the Homeless Action Center, Lava May X, or the Housing Consortium of the East Bay, those who are still holding on to the last remnants of humanity day and night. But the bigger question remains why? In a country considered one of the wealthiest on the planet, do we allow a city like Oakland to reach this point? And more importantly, if we do not take action, do not speak up, do not demand change, how long will it be before your city, where you live today, also becomes a real-life ghost town? Oakland used to be a place people called the heart of the community. That place once stood up for justice, once led the changes. But today, that place is silently witnessing thousands of people, from single mothers to veterans, from retired teachers to workers who once contributed to building America, quietly falling to the bottom of society without a sound. So what is holding America back? Why is a country that once prioritized people now leaving millions to sleep in tents in the heart of a $1 trillion economy? If you ever believed in the American dream, if you ever thought this place was the final paradise, then what kind of future are we building for our children when those who once built this present now have to quietly survive amidst the ruins? What do you think about the homelessness crisis in Oakland? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. The information in this video is collected from public sources and presented for the purpose of analyzing and reflecting on current social issues. The video is not intended to criticize any individual, organization, or government. All the viewpoints in the video are intended to reflect reality and do not aim to exaggerate or discredit any party. Viewers are encouraged to seek further information from various sources and approach the issue objectively,